Welcome to the very first episode of Better Images that complements our Better Design line to help you improve your sites look better by focusing on other things than just the building that we usually focus here at Websites for Beginners. Today we are going to look on this site at testimonial thumbnails that we often have with testimonial blocks and elements. Here is a very good example of that, and this is exactly what we will be looking at. This is a very typical testimonial slider. If I not hover over it, you will see that the slider will move from the one testimonial to the other one. And when I hover over it again, it stands still. So let's design from beginning to end, or rather let's work on an image from the beginning to the end that we will use here. I'm going to introduce in this course sometimes things that may sound a lot of technical and you think, yeah, I don't need to know that. But I will implore you, sit down and try to get a little bit some of these concepts into your mind, because it will help you to make better images, prepare better images for the websites, and also give advice. This is especially important if you are a one-man show, if you are a small team where you have to handle everything. Then this kind of thing can really help you take your development so much further. So before we jump into this image, I want you to inspect this photo. Now, inspect can be done on Chrome as well. I'm using Blisk here. All you do is you go to the image and you right-click on the image, and then you will see here is an option to click on Inspect. And it's going to open something that's going to scare you a little bit. It may look overwhelming, but you're only going to focus on this area here where you see margin, border, padding, and then the middle. Why I want you to look at that is you will see it says 118.344. That is 118 pixels, 0.344. So this image is 118 pixels on its sides as well as the top and bottom. So it's a square image as it is presented. Let me show you a little bit more here. I'm going to close out. Well, I could have left it open. And I'm just going to grab here my inspector. Now, when I hover over it, you will see it appears like so. There is a bounding box around this circular image telling us this is actually a square that is happening over there. Even though the image appears a circle, the whole container is a square at 118 by 118. Now, we are not going to talk about the ×2 image display for Retina displays that many people propose to do, because there's a lot of debate on that. I'm at the ×2, but we are going to stick here to what you can prepare in general at this time in the world of website making. So before we do that, I want to show you another thing that you have to be aware of. In this browser, I have the option to display it for you on various displays. So if we go to desktop, and we look at the top three here at the top on the left, this is a HDPI display, which means 4K. The one under that is your normal HD, and then the one that started it all off, basically 1400 at 40. So let's click on this one, and I'm going to make it full size so you can see it better. And we scroll again to those thumbnails for our testimonial. Now I will again go and inspect it, and if I click on it, you can barely see it, but it says 118 by 118. Good, so you have an idea. Keep looking at that, and I'm going to put it now on full HD. It appears as if the image had gotten smaller, but if I go again over it and I inspect it, and you barely can read that, it will say 118 at 118. If I put it on 4K now, the image is even smaller. But guess what? If I go and inspect it, it's at 118 at 118. So what is going on here? Well, the problem that you are facing here is that we are fitting in a 4K screen on this screen that I'm recording it. Actually, the image isn't smaller. The image has remained exactly the same. What has changed, though, is the border size. You will see if you look here where the quotation marks is on the normal screen, more space, and then on the 4K, it all stretches more. So that image, the thumbnail, has not gotten smaller. It has remained at 118 by 118 pixels. What does that mean for you? What that means is you don't need to prepare an image that is larger than 200 pixels. Because whether it's going to display on a laptop, on a MacBook, on a Surface Pro tablet, or on an HDPI 4K screen, you're going to need 200 pixels for this image. So all of this already sounds very technical, but in the upcoming episodes, by repeating this, adding a little bit every time, you will begin to understand it. Sometimes we're going to simplify things, oversimplify things, but at the end of the day, you will get a better understanding of how images work. I want to put a condition on what I've just said. If you really try to find out the best solution for images, you're going to find a lot of different opinions actually online. I will try to give you the midway. I'm trying to give you what's good on the one side, what's good on the other side, so that at least you've got a good workflow going. In this case, then, today's episode, we're going to work backwards. We've looked at this testimonial, we've looked at the thumbnail that we are using here, and we've determined that it displays 118 by 118 pixels. Because we like round numbers, we're not going to make it at 118 pixels, but we can make it 120 to 200, just to be on the safe side and make sure we don't miss out on a few pixels here or there. That's just one of those things that I like to do. But if you want to go for 118 pixels by 118 pixels, be my guest. Right, so let's move to the next stage. We are going to make an image with 200 by 200 pixels, which means it's going to be a square. That is the next thing I want to highlight quickly. When you work with this kind of image that's going to become a circular image, it's going to have the shape of a circle. Always make it 1:1, which means it's a square looking image. The reason for that is within your page builder, you can then go to your image borders and you can change your border radius to make it look like a circle. For you to work along with what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Unsplash, and then from Unsplash we are going to grab a photo. So unsplash.com, and we are going to look for, let's say, businesswoman. We'll talk a lot about stock photos still in these episodes because there's a lot of good and there's a lot of downsides to stock sites, especially these free sites like Unsplash. One of the reasons there's a downside to them often is because the photos are highly stylized. Highly stylized means that there is certain looks applied to them. So for example, if I choose, let me quickly find, and this guy is here in the businesswoman section. There's a lot of style applied to this photo, which is not how the photo will look out of the camera. And when you're working with stock photos, often you want to have just a very good looking photo, not too much styles and effects applied. And that is often what you get when working with Unsplash, is that you get edited and reworked photos, and it's not always ideal. But Unsplash is free, so we are not going to complain. Let's use this image up here of this lady sitting on the chair, and you can just click on it to have a better view of how it's going to look. And then over here, you click on download free, and then you can also share on Facebook and Twitter to give them some recognition, because after all, it is free. After it is downloaded here in my download bar, I'll just open it so I can see how it will look. Everything is fine. And then let's show in folder, and there we go. If I click on this photo, you will see it is at 6.81 megabytes, which is way too big for a site. I think at this moment you may already have a question and tell me that you use an optimization plugin on your website. Those are good. Yes, I would recommend that if you've got a good optimization plugin like ShortPixel, go ahead and use it. But I also highly recommend that if you know how to get your images as optimized as possible before you load them into WordPress, do that. I will use a variety of software in this series, and I will try and change a little bit sometimes between them, so not to give preference to a specific one, but I do have my go-to tools. You may have your own, and most photo editing software can all do the same. I will also show you free online versions for if you don't want to go and spend the money on the ones that I'm showing you, you can try the online ones. They also work. In this tutorial, I'm going to use Topaz Studio 2, which came out recently. Still a little bit in beta. They are bringing in many new features, and they still have to bring in a lot of features from Topaz Studio One. But everything that I need for it to work is going to work in Topaz Studio One. I've opened it over here, and then here in my Explorer, all I need to do is click and drag the photo and drop it onto the dashboard and the mat of Topaz Studio 2. And here we have the image looking good. So let's have a look at this image and what we want to do with it. My workflow always starts first with my aspect ratio. How do I want the dimensions from width to length? Because this is going to be a circular image, we're going to make it at 1:1. And to do that, we crop the photo. Every editor on earth has a crop function, even the editors on your cell phone. In Topaz Studio 2, you're going to find the crop here in the bottom left-hand corner. Click on that and you will see this grid appears, and we'll talk shortly about this grid. Here in the right sidebar, you will see aspect ratio, and currently it's set to custom. Custom means that if I grab these handles of this grid and I drag it, I can drag it around freely. It doesn't restrict itself to a specific aspect ratio. I want to have my top and bottom exactly the same lengths as my sides, and that is a 1:1 aspect ratio, which gives you a complete square. At the aspect ratio, then we go to the drop-down menu, and you will see there is a setting over here for 1:1, so I click on that. Now immediately it goes to 1:1, and actually not a bad job. The first piece of advice I want to give you, because you can move it around now, and what you see in the frame is what will remain. The rest will be cut out. So the first piece of advice is that when you work with a headshot or a person's portrait and you want to use it as a thumbnail, and you want to put it in a circle shape within your page builder for your site, make sure you have a little bit of space here at the top. The reason for that is once you start applying that border radius and you make it a circle, it often cuts out space around the head, and then it can cut out and it can make things look a little bit unbalanced. So the advice here is to make sure that you have a little bit of space there at the top. If I could have had more, I would have preferred that. The next thing is that you see these lines here. Now in photography, we call this the rule of thirds. It's something that people discovered many years ago, and they say we as humans are attracted when things fall on these lines. So when it comes to portraits and people photos, we want their eyes to appear on this line. And a lot of this may sound like a lot of mumbo jumbo to you at the moment, but trust me, if you do a photography course, if you do anything regarding portraits and images, these are the things they are going to teach you. So we want, preferably, because you're not always going to be able to do it, to get her eyes to be on this line. So I'll grab this and reduce it, and then until we get around here, and her eyes are now on this 2/3 to the top, or a third from the top. Because this is a square photo, though, we can leave her eyes in the middle over here. The other thing you want to also take note of is what we say, don't cut off at limbs. Now a limb is your arm and the joints of the limb. So we don't want to cut like this. This is never a good photo where you cut somebody's elbows like this. But in this case, we are safe. We don't have any problems about that. This is what we're going to be working with. And this looks good for our testimonial thumbnail. We go over here to apply, and it will crop it out. And this is what we are going to be working with. Now you have to remember and imagine this is going to be a circular image when it is displayed on your website, so it will look okay. Now let's go and see how large is this image. And for that, we will go to the resize option. Over here, go to edit, click on edit, and then resize. And immediately we see it's at 2,795 pixels, all our sides. And we want to get to 200. So this photo is essentially 10 times larger than what we need to work with. So what we do here is we highlight that and type in 200 pixels. Because we have checked keep aspect ratio, it's going to also adjust the height here automatically for me. I don't need to do anything. It's in pixels. So all I need to do now is click on resize. The image now is blurred. Why is that? Because if you look up here, it says 410%. This image is now displayed in full view, which is a fit view over here. So it means it has enlarged it to a 410%, and that's why it looks blurry. To see how it will look at 100%, how it will look at 200 pixels by 200 pixels, you go to this option that says 100%, click on it, and that's how it will look. When you work in a photo editor, the first thing that will happen is you will think, this is too small, I need to make it larger. But then you just go back to your site and you go look at that image and you're like, no man, this is even larger than I need. So don't be fooled when working in a photo editor thinking that it is too small, I need to make it larger. Remember, 118 pixels, 120 pixels, we are working with 200 pixels. So it's already larger than what we need. Now from here, we can just export it. But in Topaz Studio, they've got a filter that I'm very fond of, and it's called AI Clear. No, wait, is it AI Clear? Yeah, AI Clear. So if you go here, let me just show you again what I did. Up here where it says Add Filter, and you can see there's a bunch of filters in here. And within this Better Images series, we'll go through a lot of them because I use a lot of them. Every photo editing software on the market, they have filters, and each one prides itself in having something that the others don't. So that's why if you look at my taskbar here at the bottom, you will see a plethora of apps because I just cannot have enough. Let's go back to what I wanted to do here, and that is AI Clear. And it's actually the top filter at the top. Topaz Studio even says it is an essential element that you can apply to any photo. What AI Clear is going to do is clean up your photo a little bit. Now, most of the photos that you are going to download, I would say all of the photos that you are going to download from Unsplash won't need it because it's already been processed to make and look good. But because we have reduced the size of this image, by adding the AI Clear, you are going to see a slight sharpness improvement in my photo. And this is fine because it's a small image. You want it still to be highly visible on your site. So adding a little bit of that sharp contrast will make the image look better. So observe, I'm going to leave it as small as it is now, and I'm going to apply this filter, and I click. And did you notice that? Let's fit it again into the window here. And this is how it looks currently with the filter applied. I will click on the photo with my mouse, and that will give me the before. That is how it looked before. That's how it looks afterwards. Now, of course, both of these versions at this fitted view are horrendous. But if you go down to your one-to-one, let's see if you can see the difference. I click on it. You see it looks a little bit hazy at this moment, and I let go. And this makes just that extra little bit of difference. When you're working with the image, you make it small and you still want it to pop up on your site. Now, usually in photography, I will not do this because it's over sharpened. And we don't like that when we are printing photos. But I have adopted this workflow for images on the website. If I want it to look better, I use AI Clear. Like I've mentioned before, you will see in many of the software apps that we will be using here at Better Images. They all have features like this. I'm very fond of this AI Clear. In fact, actually, if you go to the add filters up here and scroll all the way to the bottom and you've gotten any of the extensions, you will see even here it's called Sharpen AI. This one is the big brother of AI Clear. That's for another day. Now we are done. My image is ready. I just need to save it now so I can use it on my website. To do that in Topaz Studio 2, we use the function export because we're taking the original image and we are exporting it to the image we want to use now. So we go up here where it says export, click, and your export dialog box opens export image. Your file format for photos like this, always JPEG. Do not go to PNG, it's JPEG. Let's change the name. We're going to say this is testimonial, let's call it 01. And then you choose the quality. I like to go for a default quality usually of 4. That just gives me some room to work with. What happens is, as you reduce the quality, the size of the image gets smaller. So I'm going to put it on 4 and click on export. Let's go into our folder and it should appear over here. So this is where we started with this image at 6.81 megabytes. If I click on this one, we are at 8.98 kilobytes. Because remember, that's all you need. Making a large photo and saying I want to have the biggest photo possible on my site, I just want it to look good, is a total waste. Just don't do it. Now I want to tell you, we talk about optimization. Optimization is very important. We want to have this image as small as possible, but still looking good. So the first step we did was to make sure we got the right aspect ratio of 1:1. The second step we did was to resize the photo and shrink it down to 200 pixels by 200 pixels. The third part of the optimization was to export it as a JPEG and choose the quality. Lower the quality, the smaller the image. But there are certain apps online that you can use that is geared towards optimizing your image even more. And the most famous of them is called TinyPNG. So let's go to our browser, open a new tab, type in tinypng.com. And at tinypng.com you can use PNGs or JPEGs, it doesn't matter. Let's go to our folder. So remember, it's at 8.98. You click and drag it and you drop it. And look at that. It says it has reduced it by 37%. Now it's at 5.8 kilobyte. Every little bit you can save is good for you because the smaller the photo, the quicker it will load on your site. The quicker your site loads, the better your score for SEO. Download the image over here. Just click download. It's downloaded and it's going to add a 1 over there because same name. So now we have these two images. This one is 8.98 and this one is 5.67. If it's going to go onto this site, it's going to go down to 118 pixels. Your image is perfect now. You upload it into your media library, you replace this image, and you have optimized the living daylights out of it. And that's a wrap for this first episode here at Websites for Beginners with Better Images, to give you an idea of images, how they display on various displays, and that they are actually static. They remain static because if you're on a 4K monitor, HD, or a smaller display, it's going to remain the same. But not always, and we will talk about this in the future, especially when you are using full width and hero images that stretch across the screen. Then, when you go from an HD to a 4K, the image enlarges. And that is where you have to start making many other decisions. But on your canvas, which is the page where all your content goes, if you use an image like this, regardless of the display, it's going to be at 118 pixels at 118 pixels. That means that if you are preparing an image for this, no need to go big. No need to say, I want to use a good looking image and I'm going to give it at a good size and put it in WordPress and it's going to look super. It's going to slow down your site, which is going to be a penalty when you get to SEO. Our workflow was, we got an image from Unsplash. And after we got into Unsplash, we went into Topaz Studio. We loaded the image into Topaz Studio. We cropped it at a setting of 1:1. We made sure that there was some space at the top. And we tried to make sure that her eyes appeared on the top third, which will apply to what we call the rule of thirds. After that, we applied the cropping. Then we resized the image. And because we didn't need all that pixels, we put it at 200 pixels, which is still more than enough for what we need on the site. After we had done that, we put it at 100% to see how it will look. We added a filter called AI Clear that makes it a little bit sharper to pop out on your site. Then we exported it. We put it on JPEG with a quality of 4, which again reduces the file size. We exported it. After we had exported it, we went to tinypng.com. We dragged and dropped the photo and we saved another 30% of our image, which gave us 5.8 kilobyte. Now the image is ready to upload. See you soon in episode 2.